she found a way out. In 2002, Alison sought treatment for alcoholism. In 2008, she entered a residential treatment center to combat anorexia. To honor her continuous recovery, she stepped away from her corporate career in advertising and has dedicated herself to being of service to those seeking help. Alison currently serves on NEDA's Mentor Connect Board of Directors. She has a wonderful website entitled Alison's Insights, and she has embraced the role of recovery activist, mentor, author, speaker, and teacher so that other struggling people will know that it is never too late in life to recover. Please join me in welcoming Alison Smela.
Well, she's talking about me, and I'm like, wow, I'd like to meet that girl. Who's that? I also, like Ashley, if someone would have said to me 5 years ago, hey, listen, Alison, you're going to stand in a bunch of group of people, and you're going to tell them all about the eating disorder you got going on, I would have looked at them and thought they were nuts. Like, there's no way. I mean, for 35 years, I had been dancing with an eating disorder and alcoholism. And so to stand here in front of you is truly a miracle for me and a privilege, a true privilege. On this day, 5 years ago, I was sitting in a wheelchair, struggling with every bite of food that the eating disorder treatment center I was at was asking me to do. And I'm standing in front of you today, a healthy, relatively peaceful, relatively balanced woman.
Woohoo!
For a good majority of my life, my adult life, I dealt with business struggles, relationship struggles, even college, high school. There was always my default mode for unhealthy eating or a drink. I kept trying to convince myself that I was, fine. We all know what fine is. Fine is, feelings you're not talking about, but, that was me, fine. And I kind of stopped finding definitions of what fine meant. I kept trying to convince myself that, this Russian roulette that I was playing every day where I'd spin the chamber and hope that nothing would happen, that all stopped working for me. When I was willing to take a good look at where my life was going, on January 4th of 2002, I took my last drink of alcohol. Thank you. Thank you. One day at a time. And on September 19th of 2008, I ended my emotionally draining, physically threatening, very codependent relationship with an eating disorder.
Yeah!
But I didn't get to this place without help, that's for sure. I don't know if any of you can relate to this, but when I kind of thought to myself, there's a lot of comments being said about, one or the other. And for me personally, I'd push myself to sort of stabilize one, but I'd be destabilizing the other. And so when I got sober, I really only had this one outlet for me. And as those comments mounted, certainly, I thought, well, let me just go on this website that I've heard about called NEDA and see what they have to say. Because for me, I was looking for, let's see if I can't, find all the reasons why I'm fine. And what I found when I went there was I was far from fine. And then when I was in treatment and about to come home, I went to NEDA's website to see if I could find some recommendations for support when I got home. And I did, which was great. Put together my treatment team when I got home. I did that while I was in treatment, before I came home. because I knew myself well enough to know that I'd skim, kind of skirt the issue if I didn't have a plan in place. And today, when I have, the privilege of talking with someone and sharing some of how I got from crisis to a life that makes sense, or their families, and I don't have, a practical experience and maybe what's struggling them, I send them to NEDA's website. I do that because I know that no one needs to struggle alone or feel that they're alone. And that's why I'm here today to share my story. No one is alone, and it's never too late to recover. I was 46 years old, and I walked through the doors of that treatment center thinking to myself, no one is going to relate to me at this age. And guess what? It doesn't matter your age. We all come at it from the same place of all feeling alone, and to realize all of a sudden we're not alone. So that's so great. I have paper with me because I tend to go a little wordy, and I know we have something to do today, so I want to keep it on track. What I wanted to talk to you today about is some things that I've learned along this path of recovery all these years. First and foremost, recovery is not a self-help program. It is not a self-help program. If I try to rely on this mind of mine to tell me what's a good idea or a bad idea, that is a bad idea. I need people around me, mostly people that share the same language, like-minded people that get me, that understand when I say something like, I'm really having a bad day. They know it's because my hair isn't curling right. Like, they know it's a bad day because something else is going on. And the thing that I love about hanging out with people that get me is they don't try to fix me. They just listen. And if they have something that they can share with me, a part of their story that might resonate with me in some way, they say it with the hope that it's going to help, not to boost their ego. And I feel very at home with people like that. Here's the other thing I learned. You got to be honest. You got to be honest with other people, and mostly with yourself. You got to know when to really sort of let that guard down. And when I was in recovery, I was told it'd be a really good idea to hang out with another woman who had a little more experience than I did in this thing called recovery, and that she was leading a life that to me looked like the kind of life I'd one day like to lead. When I'm not caught up in obsessive thinking all the time. And I found that woman, and I really admired the fact that she just sort of had this like peaceful sense around her, and I wanted that. I liked that. And I've given her a lot of reasons not to, but she hasn't left my side in almost 13 years, so I give her a lot of praise for that, because I'm a tough nut to crack. But the problem is with me too is that all these years that I'd been hiding in this little castle of isolation, I didn't understand how to trust people. I didn't even trust myself. So I can remember having conversations with her about sharing parts of my story, and I'd watch her face. I'd look to see if maybe she was raising her eyebrows or taking that like, what? That sort of thing. Because I thought, I'm just going to baby step my way into this. And instead of that body language of, you're kidding, right? You wouldn't do that. She just looked at me and she said, yeah, me too. And it was then that I felt that shift. Like, you know what? If she says, yeah, me too, then maybe I can trust her with a little more of my story and a little more of what's going on in my heart and a little more about what I'm so afraid of. And little bit by little bit by little bit, I started to change. I can't begin to stress enough that if you do feel that that you've got something that you want to say and that maybe somebody's not going to understand, look around. Look around. The people right here, right now, understand. And I'm just so grateful and so thrilled that so many people are out here today. The other thing about telling someone and being that willing to trust is that you learn that vulnerability is safe. I was terrified of that. I was terrified of showing the true me, that all of a sudden they would think less of me, or that I wasn't all that and I didn't have all my act together, because I don't, ever, usually. I try, but I'd be lying. The other thing that I also learned is that I had to be willing to listen. And that was never my forte. here's what would happen when you would be talking to me. I'd be watching you, and I'd be thinking, like, what's the next thing I should say that'll make me sound really smart or something really funny? And by the time you took a breath, I wouldn't have heard anything you said. I would have missed the entire point. And so through this process of recovery, I've learned to listen, and listen more than just with my ear. I listen with my heart, because that's really where the message is heard and felt. And that's when I can then connect back with someone from the heart, not the head. To me, that's a big difference. Before I started talking today, I asked a friend of mine who came with me that if I started to talk really fast, to tell me to breathe, to slow down. This is a critical thing for me for recovery, is learning to slow down, to stop for a second when I feel anxious. Just take a deep breath, slow it down, and then talk or do something or whatever. I have to slow it down because I was always in such a hurry. I was always in such a hurry to change my circumstances or change what was happening in front of me. And really just by slowing it down, that's taking that deep breath, that pause, has really changed me. And that's when recovery really started to make sense. The best part about all that I've shared with you is when I have the opportunity to help somebody else. If I can lend a hand, an ear, a shoulder, a Kleenex, whatever, and just to let someone know they aren't alone and that there is a way out and that recovery is possible, full recovery is possible, I'm the one that gets gifted. I'm the one that's helped. Because in that moment, I get to feel the gratitude like I'm feeling right now. It makes me think that I am so grateful that I was willing to change. I don't know that I wanted to change at the beginning, but I was willing to try. And that's really all it takes, is the key to open the door is just to be willing. We all have a story to share that was already said today. We all have a story to share. And right here, we're here because we want to change, we want to grow, we want to support each other. I mean, this is a beautiful thing. And I don't know anywhere else in the world that I can go and not know any one of you, but yet know all of you and connect with all of you in some way, some piece of my story, some part of your story, that we all can look at each other and say, together we can fight this thing. Together we're an army at the forefront, and nothing can stop us. Here's the thing that I want to make very clear. No matter how much time that I have in a healthier place in my life, I don't ever want to think that I've got it. I am recovered with an ED, but I remain in recovery to stay that way. I remain teachable and open and willing to change and willing to grow, because if I don't, I'm going to get complacent. And here's what's going to happen when I get complacent. I'm going to start thinking that I can get away with something. I'll just leave it at that. Get away with something. And then the next day think, well, if I did that, and you see what's happening? I'm starting to walk backwards. And before I know it, I'm going to be right back where I started. And believe me, that's the last place that I want to be. I have worked hard to get here. I have worked damn hard to get here. And I'm a survivor. And I'm very proud of that, as you should all be for being here today. I'm very proud to be among you. One of the greatest things that a friend of mine said to me when I had a big milestone in my recovery, he gave me a hug and he whispered in my ear, okay, Alison, whatever you do, don't get creative. And I was like, oh, thanks so much. What? Like, what? And for the life of me, I'm like, I don't know what he meant by that, but it was really nice that he said congratulations and all that. And then I started to, all of a sudden I thought about it and I thought, right? Don't get creative. What he meant was, whatever I had done to get from day one to that milestone date, why change it? Do the same thing. Part of my recovery is that I talk to another person that's in a similar place or struggling in some way every day, every single day. I talk to my sponsor, my mentor, every day. I read about things every day. Not for a long time, but at least I stay connected to from where I was to where I am today. I think that that's just very important. But you know what? This is really only the beginning, because there's still so much more for me to learn and grow. I heard a really great, I'm not going to say a quote because this is kind of long, so I don't think it's a quote. But I heard something really good, and it said, I have it written down because, again, I need to remember. Evolution is the willingness to share a story, what works and what doesn't, so that you can inspire people a little bit at a time, thought by thought, action by action, person by person. This is how our world changes. And this is how my world changed completely. I honestly celebrate all of you and your courage to be here today and to walk forward with hope in your heart. Thank you very much.